Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Smack the Markets weekly live stream, and quite interesting markets at the moment, isn't it? Let's take a look. So before we get started, as usual, we've got the usual risk disclaimers. If I could ask you just to take a few moments just to read through these and make sure that you're comfortable with them. In brief, what we're saying is that we're not licensed to be able to give advice. So any markets that we discuss, any strategies, any techniques, they're purely for educational purposes only. So please make sure that you're comfortable with these terms. So the Dow now hit 30,000 again yesterday, so quite interesting times in the markets. And if we take a look at that one first of all, so the question I said on Monday, in fact we've been looking at this for quite some time, enjoying the sort of upward trend, and particularly after after we had the sort of pullback and the initial sort of sell-off, it was sort of clear that we were going to get that sort of run back up to retest that sort of 30,000 level. But I think that was more or less the easy move, if you like. And now we're getting up to this level again. Now what now? Now, because we tested this level here 3 times. And there's certainly been enough good information coming through, or good euphoria coming through, to push the markets up to that sort of price point. Morning, Martin. Hi, Michael. Hey, Fergal. There we've got Gordon, Brian, Miles. Fantastic. Morning to all of you. So hopefully you saw the morning prep that Fergal posted into the trading room about half hour ago now, 45 minutes ago. So it gives us a good backdrop of where we are at the moment. So if we come out of and take a look at the Dow first of all, and just do a quick recap of the markets that we discussed on Monday. So in Monday's newsletter, we're looking at the Dow here moving up to possibly retest the 30,000 level, and I think that was probably going to be the most likely sort of direction and the most likely sort of target. Now, price action got up there, and the big question here is now, what now? Because we had these good 3 tests of this price point, as you can see. Still relative strength up here, but even if we're going to continue to go higher, then this is a good area where markets often consolidate, or we have a bit of a pullback to it into sort of a value, really, for more value positioning. Remember, there's got to be more buyers coming in here to drive the market higher. So how many more buyers are prepared to jump in where the market is at the moment? And very often, you expect to see some sort of pullback for value to be realized before the market sort of drives higher. Now, having said that, if you start to come down the time frames and we start to look at these this 30,000 level here, these highs, you can see where the market is at the moment. I mean, my level there probably, it's a bit of a zone, but you can see that we've got 1 test there, 2 tests there, pretty much these 2 were pretty much exact. And now you've got the sort of pullback into the high effectively. So price at the moment on the future is just a fraction, a hair underneath that 30,000 level at the moment. Now, having said that, once we're considering where the market is at the moment, we've also had weakening momentum on our indicators here. So that's sort of rather interesting that we've got that sort of scenario going, just sort of maybe sort of fueling the argument here that we could be due for a bit of a consolidation or even a bit of a pullback, even if there is going to be another run up. Now, on this, the sort of price structure that I see at the moment, to me, it doesn't look like a topping action at the moment. Now, that doesn't mean to say that it's not going to develop into one, but it doesn't look like it here at present, even though we are starting to see some weakness on these sort of lower time frames. You can see that here on the 60-minute time frame here. So we'll certainly see as the day progresses here how this develops. Now, there's going to be two ways that we can play this. I think going forward, very much going to be intraday opportunities only. I'm not looking at any sort of swing plays on this, but there could be some short-term retracements. And if you remember the levels that we were looking at on the future, which was 29,600, which was the next sort of level below here. If we come back to the 4-hour time frame and we sort of mark that in relative to the cash market here, which is going to be slightly different sort of numbers, but the same sort of level on price action. So you can see that in here, this is 29,600 on the future, and it's sort of a structure level through this sort of recent piece of price action. So if we do get some weakness coming in, I think we could perhaps look for some intraday plays down to the 29,600, and then look for support here, look for a decision point around here. Again, if we, on the flip side to this, if the market stays very buoyant, and we have got US dollar news at 1:30 today, if the market does continue to feed good news into price action, then we could be looking at maybe a intraday opportunities on a break to the high side here. But for me at the moment, I'm sort of like looking for, standing on the sort of the fence here, just a little waiting for price to determine which direction it's likely to go, because there's going to be enough movement in either direction for some decent plays on this. Morning, Patricia. So on Monday also, let's just cover those markets first. We also discussed dollar yen. And what we were looking for was sort of weakness in the dollar. So from a FX perspective, the US dollar is sort of very, very weak. It's a weak currency, and we're expecting that to continue to weaken. What we had in the on the flip side to this is that this market completely rallied. Now, it rallied on news, and the news was that Mr. Biden has chosen Janet Yellen to join his team and his cabinet. And Yellen used to be chairman of the Federal Reserve, and she's got a history of a strong dollar and a history of strong dollar policies. So if she favors a strong dollar, this is what created the strength in the US dollar, that spike there. Now, that of course meant that that the dollar yen didn't continue to weaken off, and we've now got that sort of rise here. I don't think it's going to change the overall trajectory here. I think that unless there's some significant sort of policy changes, I think we could still see weakness in the US dollar and see that continue to weaken off. In fact, today it's continuing to weaken since then, but the dollar yen just hasn't sort of continued to sort of keep up with it. Having said that, I don't see sort of too many nice opportunities on this at the moment. We had some nice trades on this last week, but at this moment, it's looking a little bit on the sort of messy side. If anything, we could probably come down to these lower time frames and start to look at any sort of opportunities here if these markets sort of rolling over. I still think the bigger picture is looking short. We're up here around that sort of 104.50 area, up in here. So if I just mark that in, then you can see that price action is now starting to roll over here on these lower time frames. And even if we start to come down to the 15-minute chart, we can start to see almost sort of trends, not necessarily pretty trends, but we can start to see trends forming back to the short side and possibly falling in line with those higher time frames. So dollar yen didn't move where we expected it to. I also mentioned the dollar Swiss, and that again didn't continue where we were looking. So we're looking here for dollar Swiss to, again, it was a dollar weakness is what we were looking for. We got the initial break, but then the sudden strengthening of the US dollar. So that news completely sort of messing up that chart structure. A commodity that we looked at was oil, and I know what people are going to say. So let's have a look at oil first of all. And so I mentioned this on Monday, and we're looking for the oil price to continue higher. In fact, this has been on the watch list for I think since a week ago now. I think I mentioned this on the live stream a week ago. And what we're looking for here was strength in the oil market. We were looking for this to continue higher from about that $42 level up to around that sort of 40, just underneath that 45 level. So around that sort of 44.50-ish, which coincided with the weekly highs. Now we've had that move, and you can see sort of price action sort of turning round here on the weekly, and we've had a nice sort of trade out of it in the trading room. However, let's just have a look at this on the weekly chart. So the question is, I suppose, from here is, now the market's broken out of this sort of consolidation here. It's looking quite strong here. Of course, you know, vaccine news and vaccine development news is certainly helping oil prices push to the high side, with the anticipation that life will be and economies will be getting back to normal at some point, and oil demand will be increasing as well. Now that could see oil push on up to that sort of $50 level fairly sort of easily, and you can see that in here around that sort of 50 price point. So we've got a very nice sort of trading window in oil to the high side currently. If we come out of this and take a look at this on the daily first of all, we can see the sort of move here as price has broken out. Still looking strong. We've still got sort of convergence on those indicators. And let's just bring this down to the 4-hour time frame. So that's the move that we've taken, but we took the trade on the 60-minute chart. So this was the setup that we took on Friday, and looking at a tight bracket here and a breakout just around that $42 level, and we had to hold this trade open over the weekend, and then it's for it to play out. So in the run from here, we actually got a 5-to-1 reward to risk on the trade, and the closeout here, I closed mine out, which I said was the ultimate target for this setup, was at around these highs here. So on the futures contract, it was around sort of 44.80. It's slightly under here on the sort of, it was around this sort of area here on the sort of cash market here. And I say that was a sort of a 5-to-1 reward to risk. And the question is, I suppose, did I get out too early? I suppose we can always look at a lot of things in hindsight. There was a good reward on the table. If I just sort of zoom out of this, I'm probably going to have to come out to the daily time frame. I'm probably not going to get the scale now, am I? But so it was coming up to the old highs, and it was basically at these old highs, which is where I wanted to get out, because just gone through a nice trading window, and we completed that trading window. So I still think that whilst the picture for oil does still look, at this moment, it does still look strong, I'm happy with the decision that I've taken to actually close out where it did, and now look at new opportunities to perhaps get positioned again if it continues to look strong. So we're broken out on this market now. For me personally, what I'd want to see is some sort of pullback, probably a bit more on the higher time frames here, maybe on the daily. Look at some sort of pullback into maybe a support level. Now, the level that would be ideal would be these previous highs on the daily, and if we got a pullback into that price point, that would be significant support, and that could be sort of an area where we could start to look for maybe repositioning again for another move. So that's my sort of plan really on oil at the moment. I am completely out of it, so I don't have anything left in there. If you're still in this, if you've still got some in this, then the sort of things that you could do is to perhaps come down to these lower time frames, perhaps down to the 4 hour or maybe even the 1 hour, and trail the stop aggressively. Maybe bring the stop from the lows here, and well, we actually moved it up to here, didn't we? So maybe actually move the stop from here up to underneath this sort of recent swing, and if it makes a new high, bring it up underneath this sort of swing here. And that way, if the market does retrace and we do get that pullback, then at least you're not sort of giving too much back to the market. Okay, so let's look at some new opportunities coming into this week. Well, we've taken a look at the Dow. I've asked Fergal to give me the nod on where he's placing his orders on the Dow, because that will give us a good indication as to where the volume's going to be this afternoon. So he promises he'll let me know, or let us all know in the trading room. Let's have a look at some of these dollar markets actually. So if we go to dollar CAD first of all, and this is something that we could perhaps, one of the markets we could perhaps look at for continued US dollar weakness. Now, that as the dollar, as I said, is continuing to weaken off. Now we've got a situation at the moment today where this morning the CAD was quite weak as well, so we had the CAD showing up weak. It's changing slightly now, so it's more neutral as the morning's progressed. And if we have a look at this, you can see that we've got a bit of structure, a nice sort of structure line around where price is at the moment, and that's around that sort of 130 level. And we can see the price is sort of almost in the sort of position here of sort of breaking through to the short side. So again, coming down to the 4 hour time frame, you can see sort of price action a little bit more clearly. Again, we've got some slight weakness coming in here. What I was looking at also was that we've got quite a nice bit of resistance above current price as well. So we've got quite a nice level here too. The price is sandwiched between. I think if we get a move underneath this price point here, then we're into the free space below, and possibly in for moves down here towards that sort of 129 sort of 40 area down here. This to me is not quite good enough as a setup. I'd rather see a setup on those lower time frames. It's a little bit on the wide side. Yeah, nothing like being dropped in it, is it, Fergal? All eyes looking to you. Yeah, Cad Swiss. You're right. I mean, you mentioned Cad Swiss this morning in the morning prep, and I thought that was probably one of the nicest looking markets. So let's have a let's have a look at that Cad Swiss. So of course, the interesting thing with Cad Swissy at the moment is that it is sort of pushing up to the long side. So from the weekly perspective, we've got this this sort of bottoming formation. A note really, if I just sort of zoom out of this, just trying to, we've got some structure at the high side here. In fact, I'll probably mark in some levels there, and that will make it a bit easier. So somewhere, wherever we sort of mark it, probably in here, you can see that we've got significant support and resistance. There's also other levels up here, slightly higher as well. But from this point below it, we've got a sort of a gap, an air pocket, if you like, a trading window, as I call it, down to the sort of consolidation that the market at the moment is just about to sort of break out to, from break back into. So again, if we start to mark in some structure as to where the market is at the moment, you can see that we've got support and resistance in here that the market is now just sort of breaking out of, and there's a nice level there. It's around that 70 price point. So market's looking strong here. Come down to the daily time frame. Again, you can see that we've got this whole sort of consolidation here that the market is now breaking out of, and we've got the formation here of a new uptrend. We've got higher highs, higher lows. We've got convergence on the indicators. It's come down to the 4-hour time frame. Now, on the 4-hour, what I'm going to do is just zoom out of this, and I'm just going to tighten up this level here, because if I tighten this up into these highs, and we've got that big round number there of 70. So around here. And you can kind of see where the market is at the moment. In fact, if we, on my charts, I've got it just, there's 70 there. So you get the idea. Even on the 4-hour time frame, we've got that pullback into that 70 level and now pushing higher. So this candle for me is a 10 o'clock candle, so it's probably going to end up being closing it was going to end up closing strong, but it's also going to end up closing far too big as a trade. So what we can look at here is maybe something on the lower time frames. So the market breaking out into new trading windows to the long side. Trend structure is not too bad here on the 1-hour chart as well, and on those lower time frames also looking strong at the moment too. So again, lower time frames, Cad Swiss is something that we can look at. Now, at the moment, the Cad Swiss strengths and weaknesses weren't in alignment first thing this morning, but we're starting to see those sort of change around. So we're seeing the Swissy is certainly weakening off, and the Caddy is not quite so weak. So the strengths and weaknesses turning around on this, and I think this is a good one for the watch list. Morning, Satar. Euro dollar and cable. So actually euro dollar, I had that on my watch list as well. I think Fergal mentioned that this morning as well. let's have a look at euro dollar. So it's all about these levels. If we look at that 119 level, which is where the market is at the moment, again, at the moment we've got a fair amount of euro news. So we've got another raft of euro news at 11 o'clock today. So just navigate around that. And then the dollar slab of news starts at 1:30, and it is really quite a slab of news that we have then. So a number of 3-star announcements and many 2-star announcements at 1:30. So if we take a look at this from a bigger perspective, if we maybe look at this from the daily time frame. So around 119, where price is at the moment, we can see we got that window there. Again, another sort of air pocket up to around the 120 level, which is this sort of high at with that blue level. So let me just change that to a yellow one, and that makes it easier to see. So I think that's the move that we've got there. We've got strength still in the market, so everything's still looking good on the daily time frame. And unless any of the news changes anything, I think we can see maybe a continuation of dollar weakness. The euro is strong this morning, and that can certainly, strengths and weaknesses are in alignment to help push this up to fill that trading window. The question is positioning and looking for a setup in between and around the news announcements so that we can comply with our trading rules. So again, here on the 4-hour, we've got the pullback into the level, which is sort of quite nice. Let's have a look a little bit lower down. So if we come down to the 1-hour, again here, well, quite a sell-off there on the euro. Just wondering, is there anything else anything that's happened? Fergal, maybe just let me know if we've had any news, euro news, through the news wires whilst I've been on this morning to sort of force this sell-off. But I can't see anything at this end. But I've got it switched off so that it doesn't interrupt us. Okay, so I think in here is certainly the area to start looking for a potential sort of positioning. It would be quite nice, but again, we got that sort of heavy news announcements today. If we look at cable, we don't have that euro news, but let's have a look at cable. Okay, nothing significant on the news front. Okay, thanks, Fergal. I didn't think there was. I mean, we've just had a raft of news, euro news at 9 o'clock, so it's just when we started. That could have been enough to have created that sort of pullback. So sterling markets, I like sterling to the long side. I think this we've got some, as I mentioned, well, really for a few days now. Be nice to sort of get positioned in sterling related markets if there was some good opportunities to get sort of positioned, not just for the sake of it, in the run up to potentially any maybe Brexit trade announcements. These markets, they're sort of, cable's not looking probably the easiest where it is at the moment. It's sort of back in towards these highs. Let's have a look on the lower time frames. See, on the 4-hour time frame, things looking sort of rather sort of choppy here. The only sort of positioning that I see at the moment, really, well, it starts to make it rather sort of difficult with the ranges that we've got in this going on. Even if you're to look out for a breakout above the highs here, it's where do you sort of pick your stop, and they can be quite a long way away from where price is at the moment. I was looking at what sterling ones was I looking at? So we Virgil mentioned the yen, Great British Pound against the yen, which is a much better chart structure. And if we have a look at this one, we can see that we got the strong pound there against the yen. Even the other one was Great British Pound against the Swissy, which you know I like as well. But if we have a look at this one, we've got that 139 area. Just around here. And price is just sort of pulling back in towards that price point now on the 4-hour time frame. So it could be an area maybe to start to look at for see if we get some support. So if we get support in here on the 4-hour, that could start to tie up sort of quite nicely. At 139 level is a level that has some history, particularly on the higher time frames, the 4-hour and the daily time frame. So that's the sort of area that I'm looking at on Great British Pound against the yen. That's the level that Fergal was talking about this morning. If we have a look at Pound Swissy quickly, you can see again here, very sort of similar structure. Again, we're coming up to these highs. So positioning around these areas is, is where we'd sort of be looking at. But this level, or let's just say this zone, around 122 is the zone. If I just sort of come out of this to maybe the weekly time frame, you get the picture. So you can see this level through here. It's I should tighten that up slightly and you'll see. So if we tighten up to the highs and the lows, you can see that we've got quite a significant sort of price point there where the market has found support, key support before, key resistance again, and price is just coming up to it now. So above there, we've got a decent sized trading window. I think actually the best way to sort of play this would be looking at something above it. So maybe waiting for the break and the pullback. But some certainly worthwhile keeping on the watch list. Swiss yen, Michael, let's take a look at Swiss yen. So at the moment we've seen that Swissy sort of weaken off. The yen is still strong and starting to move down. The only trouble with these markets are not wonderful on the higher time frames, on the macro picture. If we look at this on the sort of daily time frame, you can see that there's we've certainly got a bit of a zone through here, not particularly sort of precise. The 4-hour, from the strengths and weakness side of things, I'd be perhaps looking at more weakness on this market. You can see it's already had moved quite a long way already. So it's level to be aware of. I've got a level here. If we come back to that 4-hour time frame, there is a bit of a level through here. As we can see, sort of a bit of support and resistance. So around 114,250, I've got it, and the market's sort of coming into that. We have got some weakness in there, but I don't see a sort of an easy sort of setup. If we come down to the 15-minute time frame, you can see that sort of level a bit more clearly here. So on any trade on this, I'd be looking for a pullback. So Martin asks, what tools do you think Yellen has at her disposal to create a stronger dollar, given the state of the economy and potential sort of housing market slump following sort of COVID? I mean, good actually question, Martin. Yeah, I mean, she's taken on the sort of a position where the market is looking particularly weak, and there's certainly no doubt about it. Whilst the Fed keeps on saying they've got plenty of tools in the tool bag, they're starting to get used up sort of pretty rapidly, aren't they? So I think it's going to be very difficult to see what on earth she can do, but a lot of these market moves are sort of driven initially on euphoria, and then the sort of realization sets in, and then the trends continue, and the markets sort of continue to where they're going. If we think about, the way I think about sort of price action and markets is that they tend to, news can move the market, news creates volatility, but the overall macro dynamics of the market dictates the trend and dictates where that is going. And news can create volatility either way, but things tend to settle down and continue unless there is something that happens that is big enough to be able to change that future outcome. And that's going to have to be pretty big, and I don't see, well, everyone knows that the tool bag is looking sort of rather light at the moment. So I think, when I sort of did a scan through this morning, some of the markets here that I thought were looking sort of fairly interesting was some of these on the Kiwis. And if you remember from the swing post last night, I flagged up Kiwi Cad, Kiwi sort of Swissy, and the Kiwi dollar. Now, Kiwi Swissy here was one that I sort of still had on the watch list this morning. You can see this here on the 4-hour time frame. So again, we've got a very reasonable trend here on these. And with that Swissy sort of weakening off, that's certainly helping the Kiwi here. So we didn't really sort of get a setup last night. I mean, you might have managed to have sort of captured it on this candle here, but it's now starting to move. It's now starting to play. If we just come down to the sort of lower time frames, we can see that we've got some good structure in here where the market sort of found support. Certainly on these lower time frames, I think it's worthwhile keeping sort of Kiwi Swissy on the watch list today. And the other one that I had on the Kiwis was the Kiwi Cad. Now, again, very sort of similar. We've had strength in that sort of Kiwi. The Caddy as well is looking weak today. We've got Kiwi Cad here on the 4-hour time frame, and we've got that sort of bracket sort of forming here. So we've got strengths and weaknesses helping this at the moment. So again, possibly something in here. You can see there that where the market's been finding a bit of key support and resistance, price is just sort of sitting on the top of that at the moment. So we could even sort of come down perhaps to some of these lower time frames and maybe start to consider where these sort of brackets may be starting to form here. So it's still not looking particularly bullish here at the moment, but if we can start to get some bullish action in here, then there could be some places maybe for some higher stop locations and maybe some sort of positioning to the long side. So I've got Kiwi Cad on the watch list as well. So Satar says, any specific plan on your trading during the US Thanksgiving? Well, other than the fact that the US markets will be closed on Thursday, and there'll be, I believe, half day on the Friday. Not really. I'm not really a great lover of trading the markets when they're closed or when there's thin volumes. So, you know, with the thinner the volume, then the thinner the liquidity, the easier those markets can move, and they can be moved and be quite erratic as well. So I prefer to focus on them when the cash market's open effectively. Okay, so last one from Miles. Let's have a look at Euro Kiwi. So at the moment we've got strength in the euro. The Kiwi is looking a little bit mixed now, and the level on this market that is that 1.7, which is just around here. So we can see the market's pulled back into the moving averages here, back into sort of a bit of a level through here. So potentially it's in an area maybe to sort of keep an eye on. Now, the only thing I would say is that we've got Euro news, which at 11 o'clock, which I wouldn't want to jump into a Euro trade right before 11. So we've got to keep that in mind. The chart structure here is looking sort of quite reasonable. And we've got potential support underneath the market here. The only thing that, again, that just sort of puts me off slightly is that as you see the market retrace, if this was going to be a market that reacted from the trend, you've got a setup there on where my cursor is on the 4-hour time frame, and the market ignored it and continued to move higher. It's, you know, so my concern is, why would the market sort of, it's already had the opportunity here to roll over at this candle. From a technical perspective, I mean, I can't speak of what happened from a fundamental perspective or news perspective on that day, on that candle, but now the market's moved higher and we've got another one. So it's almost sort of like I would have expected the move to have occurred or seen more weakness on the first opportunity here. So I think, you know, that's just in the back of the mind here. I think we could certainly sort of keep an eye on this, but it would be, again, possibly something after 11 o'clock I think might be a bit more safer to look at for positioning. Okay, so fantastic. Well, as usual, we're 15 minutes over what we were planning, but that doesn't matter. It's been a good session. Hopefully everyone's had some found it useful. So we'll move back into the trading room now, and let's wrap up the live stream. So thank you very much for everyone attending. If you find these useful, then do consider subscribing to the channel, and that way you get notified every time we post a new session out, or we run a new live event, or indeed we post a new video. If you hit the notifications tab, then again, of course, you get notified of all those events when they first get listed, and give us a thumbs up on the video as well if you find it useful. Okay, everybody, let's sort of wrap it up for now, and I'll speak to you in the trading room. Thanks for now.